All right, thank you for joining us for the American Indian Alaska Native Tourism Association's webinar series. Today's educational webinar is with the Poeh Cultural Center on supporting tribal arts and tourism. Coati kaita wahaupa. Tutiarsk, shinome kututuitza, eshte kohayohanu esh rashka washti shtratha. My name is Bianca Mitchell. I am from the Pueblo of Acoma, and I am Ayanta's education manager. For those of you who are not familiar with Ayanta, for nearly 2 decades, Ayanta has served as the national voice for American Indian nations engaged in cultural tourism. In addition to serving as the voice for Indian country tourism, Ayanta provides technical assistance and training to tribal nations and Native-owned enterprises engaged in tourism, hospitality, and recreation. Ayanta's mission is to define, introduce, grow, and sustain American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian tourism that honors traditions and values. Some of our educational offerings include this year's American Indian Tourism Conference, which will take place in person at the Wekopa Casino Resort on the Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation in Scottsdale, Arizona, from October 25th through the 28th. Reimagine, reemerge, reunite, stronger together in Indian country is the theme of this year's conference, now celebrating its 23rd anniversary. In addition to our conference, Ayanta has teamed up with industry and federal partners to provide a series of webinars on resource development opportunities and other tourism-related topics, such as the one you are in today. Most webinars are designated to equip organizations with the information needed to find and apply for funding opportunities that support cultural heritage tourism development. Others provide needed information on challenges and obstacles facing the tourism industry. Visit our website at ayanta.org to learn more about our education program offerings, and at ayanta.org/AITC for additional information and registration for this year's 23rd Annual American Indian Tourism Conference. Again, thank you for joining us for today's webinar and with the Poeh Cultural Center on supporting tribal arts and tourism. I am pleased to introduce you to our speakers for today. Jake Villarreal, Tourism Coordinator. Jake is from the Pueblo of Pojoaque and has been with the Poeh Cultural Center for 8 years. Jake started as a gift shop attendant in the Poe Museum in 2013 and has worked with many different departments at the Poeh Cultural Center since. He currently works as the tourism coordinator, and he is responsible for anything tourism related, including guided tours, marketing, and art markets. One of Jake's goals as tourism coordinator is to work together with the 6 Tiwa-speaking tribes to become a hub for Tiwa tourism. Chris Velarde, cultural arts specialist. He is a member of the Hickory Apache Nation with blood ties to the Pueblo of Santa Clara, comes to the Poeh Cultural Center as the newly cultural arts specialist. Growing up as a young child with many relatives as artists, Mr. Velarde was also watching and asking questions about the type of work they were creating. Learning beadwork and working with clay were just the beginning of his artistic journey. A graduate of St. Catherine's Indian School in Santa Fe, he took Indian art under the direction of the late Mr. Bob Chavez. In 1977, Christopher was privileged and honored to travel with the world-renowned musical group Up With People. Here he learned a different type of art, dancing, singing, and stage presence, performing for thousands of people. Noticing how the art of weaving was not common in northern New Mexico, Chris decided that weaving would be his next passion. Now with 11 years under his belt, he is an instructor for the Poeh Cultural Center. And at this time, I will hand it over to Chris.
Thank you, Tomo. Danjo. In our traditional way, I'd like to open our session with opening prayer, so if you would bear with me or go along with me. Thank you, Tomo. Tampisedo. Now, I ochun sa heavenly. Na misedo Josie Tamakoy o ande. Koda waha by kibo horipia man in that zombie. DC yami, this kayami. Akiribo. Now in the wake now. And Hana to you body could you raise Selovie. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, for that. So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up some poll questions just to find out who is in our audience and if you're familiar with tribal arts and tourism. We have 4 questions for you. Right now, the first question, have you attended a native art market in the past? Yes or no? Second question is, have you visited any of the 8 northern pueblos? Third question is, are you familiar with traditional Pueblo arts? And last question is, have you attended a Pueblo feast day? And if you have, you know that there's plenty of artists during the feast days that sell their own authentic work. So you're buying straight from the source. We'll just give it a few seconds here before we show before we end the poll and show the results. Okay, thank you for those that answered the poll questions. I'm going to end the poll now and share the results. So yes, 95% of our attendees have attended a native art market. 65% have visited the 8 northern pueblos, and 80% are familiar with traditional Pueblo arts. And 65% have not attended a Pueblo feast day. Well, once the pandemic is pretty much settled, hopefully you'll be able to come and visit us here in New Mexico and visit one of the tribes that have the Pueblo feast days, which is pretty much every tribe. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and I'll go ahead and turn this over to Jake. Jake, I'm going to give you remote control access. And there you go.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jake. I'm from the Poeh Cultural Center and also from the Pueblo of Pojoaque. Am I able to control the slide, Bianca? Doesn't look like I have access to the slide. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the Poeh Cultural Center was opened in 1989, and it was open because there was a need for a place to preserve Tewa culture and also to learn native cultural arts. So we began the CoArts program in 1989. So that way there was an outlet for anybody looking to learn. We were a small museum at first, just in one of these adobe buildings. And then we've slowly been expanding, and we're still expanding now. We have the collections department, the museum, the archives department, and our gift shop is currently transitioning into a marketplace that we'll talk about a little later. And Chris, if you want to talk about CoArts a little bit.
Sure. As Jake mentioned, the Poe Arts Center was basically started way back in 1989. And the main purpose of that was basically to continue the craft of our arts, our Pueblo arts. In those days, a lot of the arts were taught by family members, and they went down from one generation to the other. Well, as we emerge into the future, things start changing, and the children aren't really raised with the grandchildren or with the grandparents or the uncles, so that art was being lost. So it started off as a small way of teaching our youth. We were aiming at the youth, but at the same time, I think the most interest was the adult people. So over the years, we have taught classes in woodcraft, sculpturing, what else? Beadwork. We've done pottery now that we have. We do belt weaving. We have moccasin making and jewelry, which is one of our most popular classes. And basically, the idea behind it is to teach the art and to continue it. But at the same time, some of these people might want to go into the future of being an artist and start to market it. So we teach them how to go about marketing their work. We teach them how to talk in public. We teach them how to talk to the people about their work. A lot of times you go to art shows and you know, you're curious about the work. You want to know more about it. So you always talk to the artists. We try to train our artists how to speak to the public. You know, this year and last year it was very difficult. All these years our classes have been done in person, where they would come to the classroom and we would teach them. But as soon as pandemic came, it just put like a total stop to it. for people because we weren't sure what was going to happen. Well, with the crew that we have at the Poe Center, which I think we have a very intelligent crew, we went from in-person classes to on Zoom classes. Now that was something totally new to me. You know, I'm not computer savvy, so I don't know a whole lot. But for a whole year and a half, you know, we all learned slowly how to use the camera and how to teach in that manner. It worked, you know, so we know that it can be done in the future if it ever occurs again, you know. But, you know, I was frustrated at the beginning, but after a while I had to just take the bull by the horns and really learn about how can I maneuver my camera? How can I teach these people online, you know? I had students as far away from Denver that took a weaving class with me last summer. And you'd be surprised what she did, you know. She went and she made her own tools. She went and she watched the videos over and over and she showed me her results, you know. Her work was beautiful, you know. So that's a little bit about CoArts. I can probably tell you more, but I'll bring it back to Jake as well.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. The next project I wanted to talk about is the Pojoaque Arts and Cultural District that we've been working on. So we've been working with Main Street of New Mexico to put together an arts and cultural district in Pojoaque. Our goal overall is to open Main Street, Pojoaque Main Street, but we're starting off small with the arts and cultural district. The idea behind this is that we're gonna, you know, organize all of the local businesses together to kind of work together to bring tourism into the area. We're gonna meet with different people that we can put together art walks, public murals, outdoor movies, live entertainment. And we've been doing some brainstorming sessions with the community to kind of figure out what exactly we need or what exactly would be nice. So hopefully by next summer, we'll be able to launch the Arts and Cultural District and provide a lot of fun things for not only local people to do around here, but visitors, you know, because what we've really learned from Main Street of New Mexico is that the visitors want to do what the locals are doing. So if we make some really fun things for the locals to do, the visitors are going to follow suit. The next project that I want to talk about is the Poe Marketplace that I talked about a little bit before. So there's this restaurant that used to be next door to us called La Masita Eatery, and they've since closed down because of the pandemic. So we decided to lease the building and expand our gift shop. We decided to call our endeavor the Poe Marketplace. And the idea behind this is that, you know, marketplaces used to exist in our culture and in all of our cultures, you know, at one point or the other. And it was a place for people traveling from different places to exchange what they had for what they needed. And there's a bit of cultural economy that existed with that, which has kind of been dwindling. So we're trying to open up the Poe Marketplace to kind of reinvigorate that cultural economy and provide a space for, you know, people to come and bring what they have and trade it for what they need. Not only will this be expansion of the gift shop, but we'll be providing spaces for artists in here. And we also have a commercial kitchen that we're going to be renting out to local people who, you know, make indigenous food or make Spanish food or whatever they have. And that'll be kind of our restaurant, a place for visitors to come and locals to eat it as well. On top of that, we're working with one of the directors of a tribal department over here who actually comes from Kenya, a tribe out in Kenya. His name is Abraham Koski, and he's working with us to get some Kenyan coffee that we're going to be processing at the marketplace and then selling as well. So there's some really exciting things happening there. We're still trying to put all the details together for it. This is the logo that we've been working on. The next couple projects I'm going to talk about, you'll understand why we haven't done too much with this. The next thing I want to talk about is actually Poeh. I didn't provide a graphic for this, so I'm not going to go to the next slide, but if you guys can see my screen, this is kind of just the layout for it. So Poeh is this project that we've been working on with the National Museum of American Indian to return 100 tewa pots back to the Cultural Center. The project is a co-stewardship, and the plan is to eventually have the pottery here indefinitely. This is a first of its kind project with the National Museum of American Indian, and they don't even have the terms or nomenclature to define what we're doing. So for now, we're defining this as a two-year loan that we will be renewing. But like I said, eventually they'll be developing the loan into its own type of project. And Chris was actually one of our advisors with that project. So I'm going to let him talk about it from an advisor's perspective.
When I came on staff, I came in kind of towards a little after the beginning of this project, and I didn't quite understand what they were doing. But as I became more familiar with the committee, it took a lot of process. You know, it was something that was talked about, and it was something that they were determined to do. So in order to do that, they had to go out to Washington on several trips out there, and they had to see what types of pottery was being brought back, you know. And apparently there were a lot of crates, is my understanding, is that were packed with all of these artifacts in there. And the way we as Tewa people, or as we as Pueblo people, we believe that everything has a spirit. So by seeing all these pieces of pottery in crates, you know, it's like suffocating their spirit. And I think that was one of the things that brought us more determined to bring them back home again. So it was a long process. It was advisors like myself. There were others from the other pueblos, from San Ildefonso, from Okeowingit, Nambe, Tisuki, and Pojoaque, you know. So we would meet together every so often and start planning, how do we do this? What is the process? What can we bring back? You know, because there's so many pieces out there, and of course we can't bring them all back. And then we have to be careful. We have to be sensitive of certain pots that aren't meant for the public eye. So when this whole thing process started to begin, of course we always started with prayer. We started with prayer. We went out there. We talked to them. We received them. Told them, "You're coming home soon. You know, just be patient." And all the work, all the processes going in, and even before we could bring them back, we had to renovate our museum, because we had to bring it up to standards, because the museum has to be at a certain temperature to have these pots in. So there was a lot going on both ends. They were packed things out there, getting them ready for shipment out this way. We were busy renovating our museum area. And even within that, there were many changes made. We wanted this, we wanted that. Well, you know, things didn't look well this way, and they weren't being displayed right. And so even with that, we were constantly changing the features in it. Finally, the day came when they were arriving, you know, and we were all there to greet them. You know, they were in the truck. We were there to greet them. We prayed. We brought our spiritual leaders out to pray for them and to welcome that back home, you know. And later on that weekend, we finally put them on display. What a sight it was. What a sight it was to see, you know, pieces of pottery that has been here in our home, but yet taken away, you know. And most of the pieces were purchased by one man, and he had them for many, many years, you know. So that was, you know, how things were done in those days. You know, my grandmother talks about when they would take pottery down to the train station, and they would lay out their stuff, and people would buy them, you know. So I'm assuming that's how a lot of these pieces got taken back east, and now they're back home again, you know. So now we have something that belongs to us. We feel that these pots are home. They're welcome, and their spirit is being, you know, released in the area. When you go in there, you can always feel that presence. as we say, you know. But in fact, I just did a tour yesterday and we are talking about it. And we're talking about the different shapes. We're talking about revolving of how art has changed. The old traditional pots to modern pots, you know. There was a teapot that was made. So we know that teapot wasn't made way back in the 1800s or early 1900s. You know, that was something that was made later on as, you know, as we evolved into the future, you know. But along with that, we have a workroom right next to it. We have a lot of kids that come to our museum, and it's a chance for them to observe, to watch a video, to learn about our pottery, and to learn about the art, what it takes. It's created by hand. It's not created on a wheel, you know. And sometimes the students are very lucky that we might have one of the artists there and share their view with them. You know. But anything else you want to add on to that, Jakey?
Yeah, so along with the all those other activities in the study room, there's the National Museum of American Indian is also allowing Pueblo people to handle a handful of pots. They have to make a special appointment, and trained post staff have to help them with it. But you know, if you make the appointment, you can spend some time with one of the pieces in the study room next door, whether it be to you know, spend some time with the pot, kind of study the designs. We actually have some of the advisors that have gone up that have made pieces that inspired them, you know, from looking at all the pieces at the National Museum of American Indian. Or maybe the pot looks like a design that's been in your family and you want to just take a closer look. And that's also first of its kind with the National Museum of American Indian. I think they told us that they've never worked on a project like that before. And, you know, not just with Diwe Poa, but with the marketplace and a lot of the other things that we've been talking about. That's one of the amazing things about working here at the Poeh Cultural Center, is even though we're a cultural center and a museum and a collections and an archive, we're able to explore all of those things from the Tewa lens, you know, from the indigenous lens. And we're able to take a step back and reevaluate things as a Pueblo person. The Diwe Poa project that we worked on was probably the best example of that, because everything was guided by the advisors, from you know, how which pots we were going to select, all the way down to what the room was going to look like and what the overall theme of the project was going to be. And I apologize, I don't have any photos of it now, but when you go into the room, there's not any TVs, there's no labels, there's just blank white walls, pots in all of the corners of the rooms, and a bench in there to visit. The advisors made it very clear that they didn't want this to be an exhibit. They wanted this to be, you know, like a place to visit with community members, is how we're looking at it more than anything. This map that I showed you is really the only reference that we have to where the pots are for the visitor, which, you know, we have to try to bridge some gaps sometimes because it conflicts with some of, we're trying to find a good way to express it. It conflicts with some of the advisors' notes. But yeah, that's what's really fun about working here, is we're able to work on projects like that. The last project that I wanted to talk about is probably the biggest event that we've put on. It's called the Pathways Native Arts Festival. And I apologize, I don't have a flyer for that. But if you go onto our website, poecenter.org/pathways, you can get all the details. This is a postcard with some of the details here. So the reason that we had pathways, or we thought about pathways in general, is as you all may or may not know, the Swaya Indian market, they put on Swaya every single year. And because of the pandemic last year, they had a virtual show. And this year, they, because of the pandemic or COVID in general, they had to turn away half of their artists. And we noticed that there was a lot of artists that didn't have anywhere to show. So we decided to start Pathways as an outlet for them. We've since worked with Swaya, and they've given us their full endorsement. You know, they've mentioned us in some of their advertising, And we feel like we're getting off to a good start with it. We started out with having space for 500 artists altogether, but because of the pandemic, we decided to cut it off at 303 artists. That's both inside artists who paid the premium fee, and then outside artists who are staying out there for free. We're balancing this out to where all of the indoor artists pay for the outdoor artists. So this is more just a service that we're trying to provide than anything. And it was amazing because it seemed like this just snowballed into more and more opportunities, not only for us, but being an outlet for a lot of other places. We were approached by this lady named Sage Mountain Flower, who's a designer. She had this idea to make a Pueblo fashion show. So we've since put together a fashion show with just Pueblo designers. And I think it's going to be kind of the first Pueblo only fashion show. We were also approached by this artist named Patrick Collins, who's working, who created this piece of Deborah, this is the only thing I can't remember now, Deborah Holland. And he decided that he wanted to raise some money for missing and murdered Indigenous women with this piece. So he decided to have an auction, and all the money that he makes with the piece, he's going to donate to the Coalition to Stop Violence Against Native Women, who works on projects all the time with missing and murdered Indigenous women. So Eulalie, I'm not sure if everybody has heard of the musical group Eulalie. They caught wind of what was going on, and they decided to pitch in. So they're donating a free show, free to us and to the Coalition. We're going to be charging tickets for that show, and that's also going to help go towards the cause. So that's going to be happening August 20th from 6 to 9 p.m. And the artists that are at the show are also going to be able to have their booths open inside and sell as well. Like I said, this is probably the biggest event that we've ever had, that we've ever put on. It's happening at Buffalo Thunder Resort, not exactly here at the Cultural Center, but we're really excited. We have 303 artists, 5 or 6 food trucks that are going to be coming. We have activities going on, children's workshops, live art demonstrations, and over 20 performances, including traditional arts dances and bands that are coming up and performing as well. Along with that, we have a few panel discussions going on inside. We have a Sundance film screening in one of the rooms at one of the times. We have a panel discussion on the state of Native American art, and also a panel discussion on Pueblo pottery that's going to be hosted by the National Museum of American Indians. Hope I didn't forget anything with that, but like I said, if you go onto our website, poecenter.org/pathways, there's tons of details there. And I hope to see all you guys at Pathways.
One of the things about the Poeh Cultural Center is that there's always something going on there. For many years, I worked for the public schools as a language teacher. And at times I would take my students there and see the sites, what was happening. And I always wanted to work there, because so many activities were happening and classes were being held. And I just felt close to it. Well, finally, I left my teaching job and I got hired by the language department, and our office is located right in the Poeh Center. So I know language is important because we're all at the verge of losing it. So I would teach language as well, but at the same time, I would watch Jake and the staff and the crew. They were always planning some kind of event. And it was surrounding art. It was learning, So this past year, they had asked me if I would be interested in taking over the art culture specialist. Art has always been my passion. I'm always learning to do about artwork since as a kid. Once I got in, oh my God, it's like a whole brand new world to me. You know, they they're teaching, well, I'm teaching a class. I had never thought I would be a teacher in weaving class, but I do that. I do that for them. We're getting ready for our pathway show. I was part of the Poeh project, so there's something always going on. And then we also have a farmers market on Friday. A lot of times you have the local people selling their produce, as well as we have other pueblos that come by selling Indian bread, Indian pies, and cookies. You know, something's always happening there. We enjoy that. Several years ago, we were working with the youth, and you can look way in the back. We have two little domes, and those are Orno ovens, and you build bread in them. We did a demonstration out there with bread making. So the whole idea behind the Poeh Cultural Center is to learn our cultural and traditional ways, so that this art doesn't die down. Um, and then our gift shop. The one thing about our gift shop is, yes, it attracts the tourists, and we teach the tourists about our culture, about our way of lives. But at the same time, locals come by to our gift shop because we carry a lot of the dance regalias that are always in need. Sometimes you can't find stuff that you need, such as a kilt, rain sash belt, or skunk skins that we use for our dances, scarves, anything like that. We have it. And if we don't have it, we'll look for it, and we try to keep it in stock, because there's always someone that's going to dance for their feast day, and there's things that they need. So we try to keep those intact. And that's where part of my classes come from. I teach my students how to do a craft. I have, so far at all my teaching, I have probably 3 students that have successfully gone beyond my expectations of learning how to weave belts. So it's the Poeh Center is kind of like a magic kingdom where anything is possible. I was told that when the tower was being built, it was just solely by itself, and people would pass by it. People were wondering what it was. What is that thing going to be? And it's all adobe. And in a way, it was a good gimmick, because people wanted to see what it was, so they would stop. And it was the eye catcher. So that brought tourism in. I always been involved with tourism in some way or another. I'm always selling to the tourists. I would do bead work. I would make little figurines. I would take my grandmother to the Portal in Santa Fe, and we would sit there. And my grandma wasn't much of a talker. She made the pottery, and we would sit there. And I think I did most of the talking to the tourists. And like I said in my bio, I traveled with people, and it took me to Europe for 6 months. It took me to the East Coast. And being out there, I had to educate people about us. We as Native people, a lot of people think that we died with the West, that we no longer exist, and they became fascinated with the Southwest, what it was about. I had many of my friends come out and visit me. They came around feast day, and like Bianca had mentioned, once the pandemic is over, if you ever get invited to a Pueblo feast, take advantage of it. The red chili, the green chili, the pozole, chico soup, garbanzo, the oven bread, the pies, the cookies, all traditional foods. We even included potato salad and jello as part of our traditional food. So, we're here in Pueblo land. We're always feasting, we're always eating, we're always dancing. That's what keeps us thriving. And this pandemic has really put a damper on us this year because of the everything has been closed off. All our pueblos are still closed. Dances are being held, but only for that one pueblo and their people only. So we need that. And at all the Pueblo feast days, you have vendors. Selling. And they have all kinds of craft. Art is always evolving. You look at the pots that are in the museum, and you look at pottery now. How it's more of perfection. The different styles, different techniques of firing. But yeah, I love working for the Poe Center. I love the staff that works there with me. So thank you, Jake.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, it really is. It's a blast working here. Like he said, there's always something going on and always some kind of a new idea to explore. Or if it's not a new idea, it's taking a Western concept and dissecting it and figuring out, like I said, from the Tewa lens, how we would do it. So it's really fun to be able to approach things like that. That's the big idea with the marketplace for sure is, like Chris was saying, providing all this dance regalia and things that people need for their functioning culture, So I think that's everything we have to talk about. Does anybody have any questions? And I'm also answering some questions in the chat as well.
Let's go to the photos, Jake.
Okay.
Then let me just of the.
I'm sorry, Jake, I got the control.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, so if you have any questions, we do have one in the Q&A.
I'm answering that one right now.
Okay. So Jake will answer that. And then the question was, where can I find information on the art classes? Are they available to the public?
Yes, we have 3 sessions. We have a spring session, we have a summer session, and we have a fall session. Right now, our classes are 8 weeks long, and it's basically up to the instructor. He can have the class 1 day a week or 2 days a week, and the time frame is usually anywhere from 3 to 5 hours long. And the only thing is it's open up to Native Americans that can take the class. You have to provide your CIB to take the class. Usually we charge a fee for it, and that will cover just basically the instructor's fee. There might be some extra stuff that you might have to purchase on your own, but we try to supply you with most of the materials that are needed. An example of my class is when I was teaching, I provide the looms. The looms are on loan, and I have all the tools and the materials that are needed. The only thing they would have to do is they would have to buy their own cotton string as well as their yarn to do the spinning. Anything else to add on to that, Jakey, about the classes?
I was writing in the notes also that we do require a CIB to register for classes, but from time to time we have workshops for non-tribal members as well. If you guys want some more information on CoArts, I put the link in the chat or in the answered question anyway. It's poecenter.org/arts.
Due to the pandemic, this past couple of years, we haven't been charging a fee. And like Jakey said with the Pathway Show, we're here basically to help the artists. We want you to be able to come and take a class with us. Right now, our classes are in person, but they are limited to so many people. We measure our studio, and then our emergency contact would tell us, okay, you're allowed this many people. So like for now, I only can take 6 students in my weaving class. The jewelry studio has a larger space, so they take 9 students, But once we pass this pandemic and everything's in the clear, then we start increasing our students' capacity in there.
I have another question here in the chat asking about studio rentals. So I'll go ahead and answer that one live. So the studio rentals, pre-pandemic, we were renting out the studios to the public. But right now, we're just renting out the studios to students of the CoArts classes. But we're hopefully soon we're looking into opening it back up to the public. The next question I have: what do your tours involve? So we have a handful of different tours that we conduct here. We have the museum tour, which tours just the exhibits that we have, the permanent exhibits and the rotating exhibits that we have at the time. We have the Tower Gallery tour, which is a tour of Roxanne Swensel's Tower Gallery next door to us. And we have the facility tour, which will take you throughout all of the CoArts classes and the administrative archive and collections. And then we also have the Buffalo Thunder Art Collection tour. So Buffalo Thunder Resort, right up the street from us, all of the artwork throughout the resort is handcrafted by a local artist. So, and we manage that collection. So we have a tour that we do of that collection as well. And hopefully soon we're looking into doing some agricultural tours. And so we have the Bison and Agriculture Department that does tours, and we refer people to them all the time. And we'd like to start doing some sort of a Pueblo tour at some point as well. As part of that, I like to be kind of a visitor's resource for anything Tewa related, or even just things north of Santa Fe. I don't know how many people have been to this area, but it seems like a lot of the fun that people talk about is in Santa Fe and south. But there's a lot of really fun things to do north of Santa Fe as well. So when visitors come, I like to provide them with the next step for their visit to Santa Fe or their visit to New Mexico. And I recommend some of the Tewa tribes for them to visit. Poeh Cliffs or Bandelier National Monument, and also some of the restaurants that there are in between as well. I have the next question. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Along going with the tourism, I worked with several companies which were from Santa Clara on tourism, and I think that's one thing that brings the people in. And before the pandemic in our pueblos, people have signs at their homes, pottery. So we would bring the tourists into the area, and they were able to go around and visit the local people and buy directly from the artists. You know, so along with the tours, we also involve a lot of storytelling. You know, storytelling that has been told to us. In our culture, we only do storytelling in the wintertime, but there are other stories involved, values and morals that we usually tell during the off-season time. And I think that's one of the highlights about our tour here at the Poe Center. I know we always get a high response about that. Okay.
Okay, so the next question I have is, when things improve with the pandemic, will you be able to offer classes to international visitors as part of the tourism experience? Yeah, so we actually have a little bit of a different experience for that. We have interactive art demonstrations that we've been experimenting with before the pandemic, of course. The ones that we've been really successful with are the jewelry class, and we have a pottery class that we do as well, but with commercial clay, or interactive workshop rather. We've had a few different groups come in and do some stamping with the jewelry, and then they're able to take those pieces home. And in the pottery class, sometimes we'll kind of have some glazeware ready to go that visitors can paint, or they can make a piece from, kind of from scratch with the commercial paint. But that's definitely some things that we're experimenting with, so that way we can really provide some programming for the Poe Marketplace when it opens. One of the big things that everybody asks for is food. So that's what we're trying to do as well. We are working on this itinerary with road scholars and with some of the other tour operators, where we'll be one of the stops for their groups, and they'll stop and eat some like a feast day style meal. I'm hoping to get the senior citizens from the Pueblo of Pojoaque together to kind of pitch in and make that happen. And then a lot of the proceeds for that will go towards their program and anything that they're working on. And from there, we'd like to expand out and make that happen with other Tewa Pueblos and other Pueblos in general, if it kind of gets that big. Hope that answers your question. The next question I have is the teachings of Indian arts and crafts limited to tribal members? I ask because other tribes may not want to teach traditional methods to general public, particularly where some members of the public turn around and teach these traditional methods to others, often at a fee. Yeah, so any class that has traditional methods in it, which is pretty much everything, like the jewelry class, the pottery class, the moccasin class, the weaving class, those are open only if you, or you're able to register for those classes only if you have a certificate of Indian blood. But we do offer, like I said, some workshops from time to time, or interactive workshops with non-tribal people as well. But of course, like I said before, we use commercial clay or with the jewelry, as long as there's not any methods that are being taught. Chris, do you think you can answer that as well?
Yeah, I was going to add on to that. Yes, it's open to Native people. And as mentioned before, you have to have a CIB. All our instructors are pretty much from the Pueblos. So we as instructors kind of have an idea what we can and cannot teach. And most of our students that we get are mainly from the local Pueblos. If we do get others from other tribes, like this past year, we had a native sewing class where a young lady was teaching how to make traditional Pueblo dresses and ribbon shirts. And we had some Plains Indians that were in the class. So in a case like that, they have to understand that teaching native sewing is not teaching all kind of native shirts or patterns. They have to learn the Pueblo style of sewing. And I think each of us as an instructor, when we have other tribes besides Pueblo people come in, we always emphasize, that they're learning this either for themselves, and if you do decide to sell it, we ask that you credit the correct people. I know we have other Pueblos learning how to make pottery with micaceous pottery, which is mainly coming from the Taos Pueblo, Picaries, Jicarilla tribes from there. But maybe these people are learning the art for themselves. Most people really don't go into the market as much as we think they do. So it's just kind of like how would you say, you have to think with your heart. As a good Native person, that you shouldn't have thoughts like that where, well, I'm going to learn it so well, so I'm going to start teaching outsiders about it. You already know by doing that things aren't going to happen right. Things aren't going to happen for you the right way, or at least that's how we believe in it. So the majority, like I said, the majority of our students are Pueblo people, and all the stuff that we teach are Pueblo regalia, Pueblo pots, and jewelry. Of course, jewelry is a different feel. It can involve Navajo style, it can involve Hopi style, Zuni style, so it's basically up to the person that they decide what direction they're going to take with the jewelry. I hope I kind of answered that correctly.
Thanks, Chris. So the next question I have says, can you tell us a little bit about the vast art collection in Buffalo Thunder? Yeah, so I was writing down some of the artists that I could think of. We have sandblast paintings by Tony Abeta. We have some sculptures by George Rivera, including a large deer dancer sculpture near the casino, and a large buffalo dancer near the lobby of the Hilton Hotel. We have pottery by so many artists in there, including Diego Romero, Thelma Talachi. We have actually one hall that has at least one pot from every tribe in New Mexico, including the Apache tribes and Navajo as well. So we have, like I said, at least one piece from every tribe. So many other things that are in there. If you go to buffalothunder.com, I believe they have some of the artwork posted throughout there. And on our website, I don't remember what the link is exactly, but you can find some Buffalo Thunder art collection information there as well. The next question I have, do you have performing arts featured at the Cultural Center? Yeah, so from time to time with our events, we have dance demonstrations that happen and other performing arts. And sometimes, most of the time it's for events, but sometimes we'll invite a group in to dance just for the sake of dancing. If you go onto our YouTube page, which is the same handle as our Instagram, I think I put it in the chat earlier, you'll be able to see our latest dance demonstration by a dance group from Nambe Pueblo. And they danced right outside of the Cultural Center. We filmed it and we put it on the YouTube page. So go check that out. And then we're also going to have dance demonstrations by a handful of groups at the Pathways Native Arts Festival as well. Is the pottery that was returned to the museum on loan or repatriated back to Pueblo people? So repatriation only qualifies if the piece is culturally sensitive or it's a funerary association. And the thing about the collection that we selected from is that none of that pottery meets those categories. All of that pottery was purchased and it was put into a museum pretty much afterwards, you know, and records have been kept on it ever since. The items are also federal property and you're not allowed to sell, trade, or you know, do anything else to federal property. So unfortunately, we're not able to purchase the pots or trade them for anything or get them donated back. So instead, the way you could look at it is that I mean, right now it's on loan, the way it is on paper, but the way that it's going to be eventually is that the items will they'll be property of the federal government, but they'll be housed here at the Cultural Center. And that's why we like to use the term of co-stewardship when we talk about that project. Did you have anything to add to that, Chris?
No, that's
okay.
Perfect.
Next question, how can artists work with your gift shop? So Cheyenne Duran is our marketplace manager, and she's the one that purchases all of the artwork for the gift shop. I'm trying to find her email somewhere, but if you call the gift shop, I'm going to put the phone number in the chat. Call the gift shop, ask for Cheyenne, and she'll be able to help you. We are currently looking to buy a lot of items to fill in space at the marketplace. She might be a little bit busy with the Pathways Native Arts Festival. So if you don't hear back from her right away, that's why. If you're going to give her a call, I would recommend doing it after the weekend of the 20th. Next question. Thank you for your comprehensive answers to my question. You're welcome. And it looks like that's all of the questions here. Are there any additional questions? And oh, let's see, I have one more. Do you have many international buyers of your art and tourism? Do you specifically reach out to international markets? So we do actually have quite a few international people come through. I feel like I've met people from all over the world at this point. We've been saying we're going to do this and we haven't yet, but we want to put up a map in the museum and some pins so that way visitors can put a pin where they come from. And I can just imagine how full that map is going to get. We don't right now reach out to international markets, but that's something we're definitely looking into doing. We've been working a lot in our marketing department and we're starting from the bottom up and we're trying to reach out. We have kind of some layers that we work with for all of our things. We try to support Tewa tribes first, then Pueblos in general, and then all the tribes of New Mexico after that, and all the tribes of the United States after that, and the public. You know, so that's kind of our layers that we go with. And international, I would imagine, is kind of the next layer after that. So that's something that we're currently looking into doing, but definitely something we're not ready for yet. I have a question that says, when is the Pueblo of Pojoaque feast day? So we have 2 feast days. We have one in the winter and one in the summer. The winter feast day is December 12th. And that's the day that we dance our buffalo dance and sometimes the deer dance as well. And I should have been more prepared for this, but we have a summer feast that we've been doing. And I know it just passed a couple of weeks ago, but since the pandemic started, it's been hard to keep track of it. But I know that it's July, I believe, 2028.
Lady was asking about the salary. How are the instructors paid?
So let's see.
It's in the chat box.
Okay, so we're primarily funded by the Pueblo of Pojoaque, with the general fund, you know, that they use for all of the local businesses that they run. But we also receive supplemental funding from grants and from donations as well. And grants are usually what pays for the classes and for the instructors and all of that good stuff. But you know, when there isn't a grant, we're kind of in between it. A lot of the times we'll kind of just pay for it with our general fund.
This last session
Sorry.
This last session that we had, it was through a grant. And what happened was we had some funds available that was left over and it had to be used by a certain date. So what we did and like this year has been basically about giving back to the artists. So what we did with what was left over was we counted how many students we had in all the classes this past summer. And we issued a stipend check to them. And they were very happy with it, you know. And it was basically to kind of help those students who are taking class with some kind of expense. So Pojoaque is where the classes are held. We had people coming from Albuquerque. We had people coming from Acoma. We had people coming from Cochiti, you know, from Santo Domingo to take the classes. So, you know, to come out for class, it's a wear and tear in your car, gas money to come up for the class, you know. So that kind of helped them a little bit with that. And they were very pleased with that, you know. And again, it's all about giving back to the people. That's what we're about. Anything you want to add, Jakey?
No, I mean, that's pretty much it. We don't go by like a percentage of the students or a salary. There's really just a contract that each of the instructors signs for a certain amount. And most of the time it's the grant that pays for that. But we do use the fee for the students taking the class to help supplement that most of the time as well.
Yeah, a lot of times it's how much you love to teach. Like my weaving classes are 3 hours long. They start from 11 o'clock and they're supposed to go on till 2 o'clock. But I'm so involved with my students that I want them to learn that I extend my time usually to about 4 o'clock. And then, you know, it's worth it. It's worth it. I like to really work with my students. Back to you, Bianca. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Jake and Chris. This was a wonderful presentation. You are all doing such a wonderful job at the Poeh Cultural Center, and we wish you much success for the upcoming art show that you all are putting on. I do want to let the registrants know and those that are participating today that we will be posting this webinar on the Ayanta website, and we will email you the link to your email addresses. So you can also follow us at ayanta.org/webinar for future webinars hosted by Ayanta, and you can also view the past webinars that we have recorded. If you are not a member of Ayanta and would like to be, please contact Gail Shihak, our Tribal Relations and Outreach Manager, or you can do so by visiting our website. And we appreciate you all being here today. Again, thank you, Jake and Chris, and you all have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.